Okay, so we've already talked about the channel tile area. This next section of the video, we're going to be talking about the fader tile here. So this is a fader tile. This does multiple things. Okay, the most obvious thing it does, it's the large faders for this bay of console channels. So whichever bay we have accessed, which is done via here, we talked about that in the channel section, this is what these faders are currently doing. So right now, this is channels 9 through 16, and my select on here is selecting channels 9 through 16. So this is my select function for the entire channel. It has no menus selected, no quick menu selected, which means it's large fader. And we follow kind of color schemes on these consoles so that it makes sense. So large fader is actually yellow or kind of green there. So if I see at the top here, this tells me large fader insert in. That's what this button does. So in the large fader mode, if we look at the channel strip itself, right at the top we have a large fader insert. Okay. We look at the display down here, we have a pan pot. So this is my pan pot for my large fader right there. So if I go all the way to the center, you'll see we get those little arrows to show me that it's centered. So I can either be all the way left, I can be centered, or I can be all the way right, and it will show me 100% right, 100% left. There's two other things on the left-hand side of this display here. You can see there's a little line. That line is my fader level. Okay. So the meter that's bouncing up and down, that's my input to this fader, and then the line is what my physical fader level is. So large fader is on the left, small fader is actually on the right. So this is my small fader input metering and my small fader level, and then the name on the bottom there is what we called it in our setup page. So this particular channel we're looking at right now is the Tom's 1 channel. So we've got pan pot, we've got a fader, and we have a select. Insert is done here on this button, in and out. Down from there we've got two more buttons on the fader area. So we've got a solo button and a cut button. And there's a few different options on solos which we'll get into when we talk about the center section later on. But for now, solo is here and cut is here. Okay. Over on the left area of this fader tile here, there are some setup buttons. So we've already mentioned that this is the large fader tile. If we press these buttons here, actually instead of being large fader, it's whatever this menu is. So if I press the first one, input, now this is actually my input level to my channel. So if I go into my detail view right now, just for the sake of showing it, if I move this fader now, it actually changes the monitor input level there. And then if I move this pan pot, or what was previously the pan pot, this is actually my mic gain now. So this is a cool way of, like, if you're tracking, you actually can set up your tracking levels here without needing to go to the top of the channel strip and doing it. So this is a really nice way of doing it. Small fader is done here as well. So input is this pink button. If I press that, now we've got monitor input level and mic input level there. Next one down from that is AUX. So now purple is AUX, just like on the channel strip at the top, purple is AUX there as well. This is now my AUX fader, if you want to call it that. So this is just the same as me going up to the top of the channel strip and changing AUX layer 1. So this is the same as that, exactly the same. So that purple colour is showing us that it's an AUX, just like AUX is a purple there, they're purple down here. So we have AUX 1 that we're looking at right now. If we wanted to look at AUX 2, we will press AUX 2. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 AUXs, so 10 layers there that we can change. And the cut button becomes the in-out button. You can see there for the AUX, the in-out is just the same as that. So we can actually turn our AUXs on or off here, and we can set our level for our AUXs using that. So that's the AUX layer. Deselect AUX, we go back to large fader, press small fader, then now this is our small fader. So instead of being a large fader, you can see it's actually changed the color to orange because small fader is orange. And these buttons have now changed as well. So this button is a small fader insert in, which it tells us there, and the button is orange now. So if I go to large fader again, just for visibility, this button is the large fader color, and then in small fader it's the small fader color, basically. Okay. Now this is a pan pop for the small fader and the gain for the small fader. So you can see now it's changing the gain on the right hand side, not on the left hand side, because it's a small fader. And just like on the large fader, we've got solos and we've got cuts as well. Exactly the same functionality. So default mode is large fader, input mode there, AUX mode, small fader mode. Deselect any of those and you're in the large fader mode. So that's those particular quick keys there. And for the most part, these don't do anything until you're in a mode like AUX where it's useful. Okay. Other stuff. So we have these layers down here as well. You can actually, there's some interaction between layers and bays. If you really wanted to, you could have each set of these bay buttons be different under each layer. So it'd actually have 3 times as many layers there. So you could actually have 36 layers if you wanted to, which is overkill until you really get into the weeds of a session with hundreds of channels. So for right now, I've just set this up so you have one layer, one analog layer, and these layer buttons really do something when we're in a different mode, which I'm going to show you right now. But there is, just so you know, there's some interaction between this and these. So if I'm in layer 2 here, this shows as blank because I've not configured these bay access buttons to do anything in layer 2, basically. Okay. So let's stay in layer 1 for the analog layer for the time being. That makes most sense. So these buttons on the left are layer buttons for the analog layers, but also if we press this button, this changes between analog layer and DAW control layer. Okay. So if I press that, like so, now the information that's displayed on here is actually not the console. This is coming to us from Pro Tools. So the metering level is Pro Tools metering, the names are the Pro Tools names, and the fader levels are now the Pro Tools faders. And the reason it's moving these all together is because in the Pro Tools session there's actually some fader grouping going on. So this is the same grouping. We just mirror whatever Pro Tools is doing, we mirror that here on the console. So remember earlier we talked about SSL 360 where we set up our DAW layers. These are those 3 layer buttons we talked about then. So this is Pro Tools layer, this is the Logic layer, and that's the Ableton layer right there. Okay? So that's how that works basically. So this now is showing us information from the chosen DAW so that we can actually change it however we need to here. And the soft keys I talked about earlier, these are done here as well. So there's a few quick keys. So there I've got my insert buttons, I've got my direct buttons, and this is actually, interestingly, transport. So I can have transport buttons here just like I've got them here. I've got my I've got audition, I've got quick punch. This is all like stuff you can choose to make this be whatever you want it to be. For the most part, I would say these things tend to be pan pops and just other functions. But you can make it be send levels if you want to. You can have the encoders can change and have a coarse control or a fine level control. These buttons can be track arming as well, so if I press record now, these are track arming buttons. I can actually arm tracks in Pro Tools. I can have a select button. I can change my automation modes. I can do whatever I want. So there's a whole bunch of stuff you can do on here and get really specific about what this does when you're in that particular given mode. So that's what that does for the most part. And then the other stuff we've got here is I can change. So this is only 8, at the moment I'm only looking at 8 sections of my session. If I want to, I can bank left and right, just like I've got bay access here. I've got the same idea, banking buttons within Pro Tools. So I can go 1 8-layer bank at a time, or I can individually go 1 fader at a time by using my scroll wheel here, like that.
So why is it not moving that up there when you scroll up?
Well, it's not. Only when you select something will it move. There's different ways in which, but basically this is just looking at those faders. So this is what we are looking at. So if I go into my mix window here, So if I move this fader, you can see it's moving those faders right now. But if I go and move next door, if I pick that same fader, it's moving that area of it. So it doesn't need to highlight on there because it's not really it's directly controlling it without needing to highlight. So that's kind of how it does it. These buttons down here, you can set these up as different things as well. Some people set these up as transport. Even if you want to transport down here, you can actually have play and stop here. You can also have navigate buttons. You can do scroll up and down. You can make things larger, smaller, wider, narrower. You can do all of that stuff with these buttons and set it up how you want it to. And this, if you remember, we set up 3 virtual UF8s within our setup options. So in reality, you can have this be different to this, be different to this, or you can just set them up all the same and have them the same way. Right now, just like when we talked about the bay functions, this is just switching one of these things at once, but there will be a feature soon where if you press that, it switches the whole console as well. So that's pretty much it. For this area, it's blue is analog. That's a good thing to remember. Blue is analog. If it's this color, then this is focus. This is DAW focus. So blue is analog.
So what I'm noticing is, okay, hit that again. Okay, so this one over here is still on analog. And you just turn that one to DAW.
Exactly, yeah.
So you can be working in the analog world over here on X channels, and you can be working on the DAW on that.
Exactly, yeah. Exactly.
So if you're in the analog, whatever you're doing is not, if you're using the EQs, they're not actually, if you have EQs open up there, it's not doing anything to Pro Tools, it's actually changing the EQ
Exactly, yeah.
on that. So
yeah, so this is still very much an analog thing. It's just we're looking at Pro Tools faders in this section. Yeah.
right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Do you guys have any questions?
So when you were in the analog view for the faders,
Yeah.
you can switch between small fader and large fader for that. Is there any way to map it so that you can have both of them at the same time? With
No.
maybe the knobs, or?
There isn't. No, there isn't. No. So basically, it's either or. There isn't
Right.
like a.
Okay.
Yeah, there isn't a both at the same time option with that. It's interesting. We do something like that on AWS 948, a very similar thing. But
That
we
was
don't
the
really-
console I learned on.
There you go. That's why. Yeah, that's the only console we've actually done that on. Duality has a similar layout but doesn't do it.
Mhm.
This one, because you've got more going on here, this doesn't do